I do think that this is the beginning of the end for John in the UFC. John Jones, we just found out, was arrested of DWI in the state of New Mexico, and basically was found with alcohol in the back seat, an almost empty bottle of alcohol. He had alcohol on the officer said his beard, his facial area smelled like alcohol. John admitting now in a statement, that he, on the body cam footage, that he got stir crazy. So when we talk about, not being able to stay inside and stay sane, and it's hard, and we're all feeling that right now. We're all feeling that, as John said, stir crazy. I just think it's funny that, it's not like John doesn't have the money or the ability to train and fight in his house. I don't see why John wouldn't have the ability to just train and stay in shape and do all of his training like most of these fighters are doing at his home. So to me, it's funny that John said he was stir crazy, but yet he went to do drugs and drink and shoot a gun, or I don't, that's my question. Was John going so stir crazy that he was gonna kill himself? Was that what that gun was for? Was he just, being a junkie and just wanting to go drink and shoot a gun and kind of just have some fun and just chill out and relax? Maybe the alcohol, maybe he was smoking some weed. I guess the officer had seen weed on him, on his shirt, or what looked like to be marijuana on his shirt. So that's the question we don't know yet, is was John going there to just chill out and relax? And why is he that stupid that if he shoots a gun, somebody's not going to report that they just heard a gunshot, and then inadvertently he's going to get in trouble because of that? So the question really is what was John doing? And if he was that stir crazy, exercise is something that pretty much fixes all of that stress and anxiety that you would be feeling from being inside your house all day. So what was John really doing out there? That's my question. A lot of these high profile people are people that are big celebrities, and John, I would say John's a big celebrity. So for John, it's like I don't understand his logic. Is John really that stupid? Is John really that dumb that he thinks he could just go out there, drink? It's like anyone can drive out anywhere and go drink and smoke and never get caught. But then John drinking and smoking, understandable, right? You're cooped up, you want to just go chill, smoke some weed, drink some alcohol, listen to music, whatever. I don't care if John does that. That doesn't bother me, and I don't think that bothers most people that John would be drinking and smoking. I think what bothers John, or what bothers people about John, is that John is choosing to do things that seem to be beyond the boundaries of logic. Like if you want to get away with something, you're just like the things John has done just seem as if he knows he's doing wrong. It's not like he's stupid. It's like he knows he's doing wrong, and he either likes the attention, or he likes to self-sabotage himself to create these boundaries, to feel like he's escaping something, to feel like he's doing it, to feel like he's conquering something, because John, being so good as he is as a fighter, never, he has the one loss, but that's for a bullshit call. But anyhow, the real question is how much is that, regardless of if John was doing that for fun, or if he was doing it on purpose, or if he was depressed or whatever. Is John's career in the UFC over because of this? John has been given, whether it's being popped by USADA, whether it's his hit and run, all of those things when you're a champion, you have kids that are fighters that look up to you. You have people that are, everybody under the sun that knows who you are. When you're a champion, is going to look up to you in some way, or is going to try and compare themselves to you in a sense of like what greatness is and achieving greatness. And when I look at John, I've been able to look past all the things John has done recently, not this necessarily, but things in the past. I've been able to look past that because nobody's perfect. Nobody's going to get through their life without doing anything wrong. And I think people don't really understand either is that when you have some sort of status of greatness, of the champion, of the best ever, that comes with weight, and that puts weight on your shoulders, and it's something that's difficult to deal with, and it's not something that is easy to deal with for that matter. And I commend anyone who has been a great champion and never had any faults. I mean, look at Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson is the greatest heavyweight boxer of all time, and I think people look at him, him and Ali, but I think people look at Mike, and Mike has done some crazy shit. Mike's been to prison. Mike bit Evander Holyfield's ear off. Mike's done wild stuff, and at the end of the day, he was the champion. He was an amazing champion. Just what he did for the sport of boxing, the knockouts that he had, just the career that he had was incredible if you look at it inside the ring. But when you go outside the ring, I don't think his career is that amazing, right? Like, there are people who are great athletes inside the ring or the court or whatever, and they're great outside the court. If you go over to tennis, I mean, tennis is a much classier sport, but if you go over to tennis, you have Roger Federer, who is one of the greatest of all time, and he carried himself like so well outside of his sport. He was a great person outside of his sport. I think LeBron James is someone that is an amazing champion, and outside the court, he tries to carry himself. He hasn't been to prison. He hasn't done anything wrong, been in trouble with the law. So, you look at those people, and those people, and they're important too, let the NBA or UFC, these people, George St-Pierre is one of the greatest of all time, if not. And he is just such a awesome person outside of fighting and outside of the sport. And I don't think you could find anyone who has a bad thing to say about GSP. And those are the kind of people that the UFC and all these organizations can prop up and can show to the younger generation, hey, this is what a champion looks like. This is what a great fighter looks like. And and all these fighters work for the UFC. They're employed by the UFC. They go to work. They're working for the UFC. So, excuse me. So, when you look at someone like John, who has been sort of protected, and John is valuable in one way and one way only for the UFC. And that is for his talent, his ability to put on a show. He's a great employee when he shows up to work. When John shows up to work, he's an exceptional employee. He gets the job done. He doesn't say anything stupid over the mic. He fights. He's got an amazing fight style. Almost every single one of his fights are just so fun to watch, and he's just so technical. And it almost feels like the world against John. So every time John fights, you want to see if John's gotten worse or if the fighters have gotten better so that they can beat John. So when you look at it that way, John is so valuable to the UFC in the sense that everybody wants to watch him to fight. He's good for business. He's good for the UFC. But the unfortunate part is that when John is not fighting, this is what it seems like to me, the casual fan. When John is not fighting, it seems as if he doesn't know anything else. He can try and act religious. He can try and act Christian. And I know most of you, when you see John talk religion and talk Christian, my mom works for the Christian church by my house. My mom's been working for the church for most of her life. And you can just sense when somebody is like somebody's not really religious or really into what they're saying. And I think most of us see John when he talks like that, and we don't believe it. We don't buy it. I don't buy it, for that matter. But the problem with John is that when he leaves the octagon, he can't handle it. He cannot handle it. Now, I don't know if that's the same, like if John, when he's training or he's at practice, he's a different guy, or he's happy, or he's content there, or, that's where he can kind of escape everything. Now, for me, for the things that I'm passionate about and I like to do, when I'm having trouble with anything, whether that's depression, anxiety, fear, whatever it may be, the things around you, the external factors that bother you in life, when I go and train, that's to me is the getaway. That's where I'm happiest. Now, you can't train all day long. You can't train all day long. And for me, I rock climb. And so when I go to train for rock climbing, that community of friends and everything is so important to me and such a good stress relief. And even though it's only a couple hours a day, that is my time to go get away from all that. So is the question, is John really that stir crazy that he can't go to his local gym or where he trains at Jackson Wink? If he can't go to Jackson Wink and train, then is that really why he's so stir crazy and why he's doing all these things and why he's done things now? I don't know if he's changed, and he really, we know he hasn't changed because of the headlines in that way of finding a way to get in trouble. He hasn't changed. Daniel Cormier, when he said in their interview before their second fight that John was just rotten to the core and he was never going to change, is that this seems to be the case. This seems to be true. I just don't see how, if you're the UFC at this point and you allow John to come back and fight, I think John's 33, 34, or is it 32? It's in that range. Okay, yeah, John's 32. At 32, is John has to get suspended by the UFC. It only makes sense. John, if the UFC doesn't punish John, then what the UFC is saying is that you can go do drugs, shoot guns in a very unprofessional, okay, I'm all for guns. I'm all for shooting guns. I'm all for having guns. But you have to model yourself as the perfect gun owner when you own a gun, just like when you own a car. You don't want to own a car and be crashing into everyone because it looks bad on your insurance, it looks bad on you, and you're just the guy that crashes into everyone. You don't want to be the car. You don't want people to, that guy shouldn't own cars because he crashes into people. You don't want to be the guy that shouldn't own guns because you're irresponsible. You don't want to be the champion that does those things. And if you're the UFC, you don't want a champion that does those things. Dominic, in all honesty, I thought Dominic beat John. So if you're going to have somebody that's narrowly losing these title fights, they're great fights. The fight with Dominic was awesome because Dominic brought it, and it was a great fight. But if you're going to have a champion that's losing, split decisions and winning narrowly, not in a spectacular fashion, which a lot of people love to see. A lot of people love to see champions, and they love to see champions have people come at them with everything they've got. and they love to see the champion get challenged, and they love to see the champion lose. There's a group of people that love to see the champion lose and would love to see him win. But everyone loves a great fight with an exciting ending, whether that's the champion being knocked out or submitted, or whether that's the champion submitting or knocking out someone else. People loved John when he was, you know, ironically pre-USADA John, but people loved John when he was elbowing and flying knee knocking people out and finishing people and just coming at them. And his last 3 fights, he's done the opposite of that. He has moved forward, but he hasn't looked like he wants to finish the fight or press the issue. And so people are, with John recently, been robbed of that spectacular finish that people expect from champions. So I don't know if it's the end. I don't think it's the end for John in the UFC, but I do think that this is the beginning of the end for John in the UFC, because at some point, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I think I said that right. Anyway, yeah, so my point being is if John keeps doing this, the UFC at some point is going to be like, look, John, we love you, man. You've been a great champion. You've done a lot for the sport. But you are making us look worse than you're making us look better. Because John has been fairly irrelevant in the last few years, and John has been at the top, and John has been majorly relevant, but this is recently, in recent times, John has just become more and more irrelevant. And the more irrelevant John becomes, the easier it is if John does something stupid like what he just did for the UFC to cut him. Because yeah, John, people want to see John fight. I believe they do, and I believe they love to watch John fight. I love to watch John fight. But every time another John Jones fight happens and I'm expecting John to be John, it just looks less and less impressive, and I'm less and less impressed each time. And I don't know if John's just, I don't know, I'm not in John's head. So at the end of the day, it's all inside John's head. But I think we're coming to a point now where the UFC is not going to see an importance in keeping around someone like John. Yo guys, thanks so much for watching. Once again, I'm just giving my casual opinion, so I want you guys to let me know in the comment section what do you think the future is for John. Do you think this is it for him in the UFC? If not, do you think it's going to be soon? Tell me what you guys think. If you guys like the content, just thumbs up, subscribe, and yeah, love you guys. Peace.